Hello and welcome to the Wooden Ball Show. I'm your host, Dave Ball, also known as Blinson on Reddit and @Blinson1 on Twitter. Like always, I am joined by my partner in crime here, Blake Wood. He is known as @ShadmarKirk on Twitter and BTownBomb on Reddit. And today we are joined by our Avalanche fan here, Alex, who is the Mr. Flux on Twitter and Reddit. And we have Babs here, who she is known as Sadai on Reddit and uh, Hockey Babbler on Twitter. How you guys doing?
Doing well today. How are you?
Doing good. How you
Yeah.
doing, Blake? Looks like we just lost Alex here. His Google Hangouts is a little iffy right now, so hopefully we can get him back in here soon. But we will get started right here. We're going into our quick hit section first. We have a few different topics here to talk about. The first one being the Sean Couturier contract that just was announced this week. A 6-year contract worth $4.33 million per year. And I personally love this contract. I just got to say, I love it.
That's the ideal contract because it leaves a little wiggle room there.
hmm And not only that, this was signed a year. He still had a year left on his RFA contract, so it was signed way before that it needed to be signed. We were talking about the Sean Couturier contract, Alex. Do you have
Gotcha.
any
Yes.
thoughts on that?
Um, Actually, no, not on that one. I didn't catch that one.
It's a 6-year contract worth $4.33 million per year. And as the resident Flyers fan, I really love this contract.
Yeah,
It's 100% worth it. He's 22 years old right now, so when this contract's done, he'll be 29 because he still has a year left on his current contract. And I feel
yeah.
like in a few years, this is going to be a steal.
Seems
I
like it.
thought
Yeah,
Couturier silently put together a pretty decent season.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you look at he had a new record high in goals this year at 15, but had 2 less points overall, I think it was, compared to last year where he had his best season to date. But he was also on a line with an extremely injured Matt Reed and RJ Umberger, so you can't really put much stock on why his points are that low.
well,
One of the things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say he's, I mean, with the points he put up, it was 37,
hmm
and he's only 22, right? He's probably gonna go up before he goes
Yeah.
down. So you're gonna get him in that good little peak there. Well, he's just getting better and better.
And plus, he had some of the hardest minutes in the NHL this year also. So that's probably going to get a little bit better as he gets better at the game as he grows. So, anybody else had any other thoughts they wanted to cover?
Yeah, just a small random thought. I'm just glad that he's staying in the East because every time we play the Flyers, Logan Couture and Sean Couturier, just going back and forth between Couture and Couturier, not fun.
It's always fun when people have kind of similar names. I know the Islanders had problems with that for a couple years because they had Brian Strait and Mark Streit. They had a McDonald and a MacDonald. So,
Last season they had Nilsson, Nelson, and Nielsen.
right, they did have that last season.
Oh God, that was ridiculous.
So that 10 times fast.
I don't know how the Islanders could do it. Yeah. So looking at the next contract that was given out, it was about a day later. Ron Hextall announced a Jakub Voracek contract, 8 years, worth 8.25 million per year. It's about as what I thought he was going to be, a little less than Claude Giroux got. So I'm very happy with it. We got him locked up for his entire prime basically here. So
Oh, what was the years on that one?
8 years.
Oh, the max,
Yep.
the maximum amount there. Very
Yeah.
good. Voracek, on the other hand, did not silently put together a good season. He did it out loud. Everyone made sure that,
Everyone knew who he was. So
oh yeah,
yeah, I love the contract again. He's our second best player, our second best forward at least. So yeah, I'm very happy with what Ron Hextall did with these two contracts. I figured it was going to be between 7.5 and what Claude Giroux's contract is, which is I do not remember off the top of my head. yeah, so I'm quite happy with it. Anybody else have any thoughts? No.
Yeah, he's not Bud, he's Voracek.
Yes, yes. Next contract, Colin Wilson from the Nashville Predators got a 4-year deal worth a little less than $4 million per year. Uh, no, Predators fans seems happy about this, so I guess that's a good thing for them. I know
We put together another decent season again.
Janetta, our Nashville Predators fan, who will probably be doing their interview. She was very happy about this contract, so yeah, nothing else I'm gonna say. I don't really follow Nashville that much. I don't know much about how he was this year. According to Blake, he did pretty good. So after that, we had a Alex Galchenyuk contract from the Canadiens. He got a 2-year deal worth $2.8 million, and I think he was going to arbitration before this contract came out. So, you know if he was Blake or anybody?
I had heard rumblings about that, I think.
Yeah. I think he was going to arbitration. This is just diving off 2 years of his RFA years before he gets paid a lot of money, which is probably going to be in his future. He's one of their better players, so. And the final thing in our quick hit section was the Penguins and Vancouver came together for a trade. The Penguins traded Brandon Sutter and a conditional third-round pick to Vancouver for Nick. Oh, Blake, how do you say the last name?
Bonino.
Bonino. I am terrible with last names. Adam Clendenning and the 2016 second-round pick. And we were
good trade for the Penguins.
Brandon
Sutter, not
yeah.
the best player.
Yeah, it's a good trade for them. They added some depth that they needed, that they traded away in the Kessel trade. Makes me sad that the Penguins did something smart.
And how about general manager Jim Rutherford trading Brandon Sutter now a second time?
Yeah, he did. He traded them to the Penguins when he was in Carolina, right?
And they got Jordan Staal from that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a decent trade for the Penguins. Vancouver is doing Vancouver things. I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Is that anyone?
Yeah. I don't think they do. I think they're trying for a total rebuild, but they don't want to trade away the Sedin twins. I think it's kind of what's going on.
Oh, they lose so much value if you get rid of one of them.
Yeah, you have to trade them both, and no one's going to want to take on both of them.
Because that's a huge, huge cap hit, is it not?
It's a huge cap hit, and the amount you have to give up for two amazing players that the Sedins are would be too much.
Yeah.
What is their cap hit? Let me go look.
You know, I do have a theory about what's going on in Vancouver. There were all these fires up in British Columbia, and I'm guessing that they're suffering from smoke inhalation.
Actually, I think it was the other way around. I think all these trades caused the fires.
All the hot takes caused the fires.
No, it's because the organization is being a tire fire right now.
Oh. Like burning garbage.
But their cap hits are both $7 million, so $14 million you would have to trade for would be very difficult to fit into a cap.
Aren't the Sedins kind of starting to get up there in age, too?
Yeah, they're 34, so there's also that you would have to deal with.
The clock is running out.
Mm-hmm. I'm honest. I think the clock has kind of run out for Vancouver now, and they want to rebuild without getting rid of the Sedins at this point, because no one would take them.
Well, I just still can't get over the fact that they screwed their goalie situation so bad last year.
God.
Want to get rid of you? Well, yeah. Was it last year or the year before that they got rid of Luongo and
Schneider was when it was when the draft was in Jersey, so that was the last 3 years ago. Because they traded when he was in Jersey, so they got rid of Schneider then, and then that season they went and got rid of. No, they got rid of Luongo last year.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
And we got rid of Eddie Lack this year. It's starting to become an annual event to screw with their goalie situation.
So yeah, who's going to be the next goaltender to win the goaltending fight between Snyder and Luongo here? Because right now it's between Ryan Miller and Markstrom. So I wonder who's going to win next.
Ryan Miller, because Markstrom is younger and can get you something better from a trade.
That is true. Yeah. So yeah, this trade is decent for the Penguins. We kind of cover that. So I guess we'll slip into the interviews now, unless someone else there has something wanted to cover. No. Okay, we will slip into the Sharks interview. Are you ready, Babs?
Oh God, am I?
You should be ready. I gave you these questions early.
The real question is, am I ever emotionally ready to talk about the San Jose Sharks?
You guys didn't do that bad this season.
No, we didn't do that bad. We only missed the playoffs for the first time in like 10 years.
That's not that bad. It could have been 20 years that you missed before you missed the playoffs.
Yeah,
It could have been worse.
It could have been worse. It could theoretically have been worse. I did figure it out, though. The last time the Sharks missed the playoffs, I graduated from high school. This year, I graduated from college. I just need to never graduate again.
Don't ever graduate ever again.
Yeah, no more graduating, and the Sharks will be fine.
But yeah, let's slip into this past season talk. So kind of talk about what happened for you guys this season.
Oh,
kind of give an overview of the season.
What didn't happen? So I was going through really trying to analyze what happened this season and give grades to each of the various sections, so offense and defense and the coaching. The real problem, though, is that it was this perfect storm, this confluence of garbage, hot, steaming garbage. So we had a combination of bad play from our better players and iffy choices from our leadership. There is a lot of question as to whether some of the decisions that were definitely coaching related decisions, whether those actually came from Todd McClellan or Doug Wilson, whoever they came from, it definitely led to a lot of problems for the Sharks. So do you want me to just jump right into the grades for the various?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the plan for the Sharks going into the 14-15 season really seemed to be to turn them into this big, bad, beefy, gritty team, with big grit, big heart, and John Scott. God. God, John Scott.
How do you not like Captain John Scott, though? Captain Sniper John Scott.
Here's the thing. I love him as a human being. He is a delightful person. He's hilarious. He's a great guy. He is a terrible hockey player. Like, I want to go have a beer with this guy. I would love to hang out with John Scott. I want to throw a barbecue and have him come over and bring his adorable children. But I don't want him on my team. I don't. So, but Doug Wilson wanted him on our team for reasons. So it really felt like that whole big gritty Sharks idea was coming from not the coaching staff but from the general management. And that was really the feeling. I believe I actually talked about this a little bit last year when you guys had me on about this choice to make the Sharks bigger and grittier. And as we can see, it really didn't pay off. Part of that is just because it's a dumb strategy. Shock. But the other part of that is that some of the pieces that we had counted on for the big, gritty Sharks didn't come together. So Torres had his zombie knee issue, so he never came back this season. Mike Brown, first he injured his hand, then he injured his leg, and he didn't really get to contribute. And shock of shocks, John Scott couldn't play big minutes. Oh my God. But even with that aside, our players that were expected to be high performers just didn't deliver. So production as a whole, we went from 2.9 points per game in 13-14 to 2.7. Goals per game, not points per game, to 2.7 goals per game. Thornton went from 76 points in the season to 65 points of the season, which is actually his worst full season in the NHL in terms of production. Marleau went from 70 to 57, not his worst season, but way down there. And, but if we're going to go back to that whole coaching management situation, they also had a really rough season in terms of, they had a rough season, one can assume, in terms of their locker room chemistry because of all of the BS about the captaincy. Basically, from all appearances, it looks like they tried to drive them out of town. And that's going to affect your play. So, on the one hand, that's on them. On the other hand, it's a little bit on the management also. Nieto and Hurdle had really bad sophomore slumps. They were there, but they weren't where we expected them to be based on last season. The bright spots were the younger call-ups. Melker Karlsson especially was quite good, and rather unexpectedly good. It's fantastic. But we do still have a few issues in terms of our forwards. We really miss Brent Burns as a forward. Having his physicality on the first couple lines is really nice to have, especially in a division like the Pacific, which is a much more brutal physical game. Look at the fucking Kings. Sorry. Just look at the Kings there. Yeah. We need someone who's going to be. I'm not a big dumb bruiser, but someone who's smart, good at moving the puck, but able to create a physical presence that's not going to get pushed around. And then we also have Pavelski still on Thornton's wing, and don't get me wrong, Pavelski is fine on the wing. He produces a lot of goals on Thornton's wing, but, Jonathan Chichu produced a lot of goals on Thornton's wing. Devin Setaguchi produced a lot of goals on Thornton's wing. You produce a lot of goals whoever you put on Thornton's wing, and I feel like we're wasting a fantastic center putting him on Thornton's wing. But all that being said, because a lot of those problems are things that were entirely out of the forwards' hands, things like injury, things like coaching decisions and management decisions, I'm going to give them probably a B-, C+, somewhere in that range. They weren't horrible, but they were not good. So.
Yeah. All right.
Defense. Oh, God, defense. First of all, there are very few teams these days that don't have defense issues because the league as a whole is hungry for defense. We desperately need defensive players, and we just don't have them because that's just what we have coming up. And so I realize that this is a problem that extends way beyond San Jose, but I was looking over who we have for the coming season, and we have 5D. And that's basically where we were going into last season, too. We have no D. And then we traded away Jason Demers for Brendan Dillon, which I really feel like Dallas won that trade. I like Dillon, don't get me wrong. He's good. He's just not as good a fit for the team as I felt Demers was. Yeah, I feel like we traded down for sure. Burns is an okay defenseman. He's okay at defense, but there's a reason why the Minnesota Wild traded him for not much, because he's not a great defenseman. He's certainly not a top 2D. That's where we're putting him, which is ridiculous to me. Market Ward Vlasic is the one bright spot we have in our defense. Matt Irwin was not horrible last season, which was shocking, but he wasn't great either. He wasn't really good either. But he didn't make me want to bleed out my eyes, so that's a positive. We had John Scott skate practice as D a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that we didn't really play that.
He's a part-time defenseman, though, John Scott.
Yeah, but I don't want to see him actually play D.
Pretty sure that's what he was playing when he was in Buffalo. So.
Was he really?
I think he was a defenseman there.
Oh, man. No, but yeah, no, he's much more valuable as a sniper, obviously.
Yeah, Captain Sniper.
Yes, double secret alternate captain sniper John Scott. Because as we all know, I'm the captain of the San Jose Sharks.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So for the defense, D is for defense, and that's what I'm giving them.
Okay.
Because we just don't have the pieces.
I'm pretty sure I gave a better grade for my Flyers defense, actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I'm not gonna give them an F because it's like I want to give them a little gold star that says you tried. A good A for effort there. Good eye, buddy. Yes, there you go. Our goalies. Oh Nemo. Oh honey. I'm going to get into this a little more later because I know we're going to talk a little bit about the moves that we made in the off season, but he's either amazing or he's terrible. Like, you never know which Nemo you're going to get, is the problem with Auntie Niemi. You could get the Niemi who is like a Jedi Master who like magically stops pucks and you just don't know how that happened because he flails around like a madman, or you get the Auntie Niemi who flails around like a madman and lets all the pucks in. It's he's an entertaining goalie to watch, but he's not a great goaltender. He's a good goaltender, not a great one. The thing about Stalock also, it really felt like when we started this season, they really wanted to do the 1A, 1B goalie thing, and that quickly went by the wayside because Stalock had a couple of bad games at the start of the season, and it felt like the coaching staff never regained faith in him. And the few times that they did play him, he did not perform well because, shock of shocks, when you don't play a goaltender, they're a little rusty. It's and it's kind of sad to see because Stalock is getting to that point where, like, if he was going to develop into a great goaltender, we'd be at that point now. So I don't know that it's ever really going to happen. I don't ever see him being the starting goaltender for the Sharks.
He's 28 now. He's kind of hitting, I guess. I think this is around the time that the goaltenders start their prime-ish. Because now their primes are a little bit later compared to forwards.
Yeah.
So he's kind of entering his prime now as a goaltender.
But you would really start to see, like, it would be about this season that you would start to see that, like you would see the petals starting to open up on the flower, as it were. Like, you would really start to see it begin to happen. And I don't see that beginning to happen. So he's entering his prime, and maybe he'll bloom late, but I'm not sure that it's going to happen. Maybe that's just the Sharks have killed all of my optimism, and that I do not dare to hope anymore. But that's the feeling I get from Stalock as a goaltender.
Okay.
All in all, though, they were far from the worst, and to be fair, a lot of their failures, especially the early losses that Stalock had in the season that really made the coaching staff seem to lose faith in him, were largely on the D, that we had no D. And what the hell are you going to do in that situation? Of course you're going to get scored on. Given that, I would give them a solid, I don't know, C.
Okay.
Yeah, they were okay. You know, it's hard looking back at this season. It's painful. So, coaching.
Yes.
Todd McClellan. Todd McClellan, I think, is a fantastic coach. I don't know if you guys watched the Road to the Stadium series.
No.
No.
So.
He's fantastic. He works his ass off, and he really has some incredible insight. And I'm really not sure what happened. I'm not sure if it was him going completely off the rails, which if you watch this Road to the Stadium series, it doesn't really look that way. Or if he was completely hamstrung by Doug Wilson, the general manager of the Sharks, which is my pet theory, is what happened. But the choices that were made were exceedingly questionable. Playing those, trying to play big bruising minutes with John Scott. Having Brent Burns at defense rather than forward, having Pavelski at wing rather than center. playing Niemi and not giving Stalock the minutes that he
You
needs to
should need.
really
Yeah.
develop. Yeah. So those are all coaching issues at the end of the day. I mean, even if Doug Wilson was keeping him back and basically making bad choices from the top, at a certain point, as a coach, you can say, like, screw it, I know that this is bad for the team. I'm not doing this. You can fire me, or I can play shitty. I can make the team play shitty hockey if that's what you really want me to do. So maybe Doug Wilson, put down the law and made this happen. Maybe Todd McClellan made some really poor choices. I'm really not sure. It's hard to say. But I'm going to go ahead and lump my score for the general management in with the coaching here, because it's so hard to tell exactly
Where the lines are drawn and all that.
where the lines are drawn there. And I'm going to give them an F.
Okay.
Straight up F. They failed. They completely.
Alright.
The leadership failed.
And if you were, I guess, give a grade on your entire season overall. Was going into the season, did it end up as bad as you thought it was going to be? Because I know you guys didn't really have much optimism going into the season, based on the off-season moves.
Going into this season, I had no hope. I did not dare to hope. But the reality hurt so much more. Like, I expected it to be bad. I don't really know that I expected it to be this bad.
All right.
So, in terms of did they meet my expectations? No, and my expectations were very low. I put the bar so low, and yet they failed to clear it. So I'm gonna give their overall season. I'm gonna give them a D.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're heading into the off-season moves. So first and foremost, what do you think about your team drafting this year?
It was a really nice draft class this year. Just in general, there were a lot of great options out there. Timo Meyer seems like a really good fit for the team. I don't know that we're not going to see him this year. I don't think. Just based on what we have, and where we're at right now as a team. I don't think that we're going to be bringing up many forwards, if any. Although, bite my tongue, knock on wood, God forbid there be injuries. There may be some forwards coming up, but we have a glut of forwards right now. And I realize that, this is going back to that league-wide defense problem that I was talking about earlier, but there just wasn't. I really would have liked to have seen some better defense come in, but there aren't really any options, not where we were drafting. So, we did well for what was available, and I do like Timo Meyer. I think he's got the kind of hockey smarts that would make a very good fit for the Sharks, because what the Sharks were before this last season with the weird big bruising Sharks thing that they tried last season for some reason, the pattern really seemed to be that Doug Wilson liked hockey players with half a brain. Not more than half a brain. He liked people with hockey smarts, people who really knew how to put together a play, people who could really see the momentum of the game and plan around it. That it was a very strategic sort of game that he was going for. And drafting Timo Meyer does seem to signal to me that they want to go back to that. And it also is a testament to how much the Sharks scouting team really likes Europeaners, rather than Canadians necessarily. Canadians or Americans, they really like their European players.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, you guys are starting to hit big with your European players, so.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. So I'm interested in seeing how those players develop for sure.
Yeah. So you said you wanted your team to. You hoped your team would more focus on defense during the draft.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't really?
Yeah.
I feel like every single team is saying that right now. I really wish we had more defense. I really wish we had better defense. just because the defensive talent pool is not very deep right now.
Yeah. So now you guys drafted 3 defensemen, 1 in the second round. So.
Yeah, I mean, I had dreams about Hannafin. I knew it wasn't going to go that late, but I had dreams. I had hopes.
You almost traded up. I know there was rumors about the Flyers and the Sharks trading picks.
Yeah.
You almost traded up there.
Yeah. But.
And ultimately fell because the Columbus wouldn't tell the Flyers who they were going to draft.
Yeah. Damn you, Columbus.
Yeah, so. The next thing we want to talk about, during your trades this offseason, you traded Antti Niemi, your starting goaltender this year, who almost won a Vezina with you, I think, 1 year.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him and him leaving?
So on the one hand, I will forever miss his beautiful flailing Finnish ninja moves, except for when I don't miss them because they give me a heart attack. He's really fantastic when he's on.
Mm-hmm.
But like I was saying earlier, you never know which Nemo you're going to get. You could get amazing Nemo. You could get, absolutely brilliant, like, holy shit, how did he stop that Nemo? Or you could get, like, moving through molasses Nemo. And what I want in my goaltending as a fan of the team is someone with a little more consistency than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want someone who's going to be consistently good. Or if someone's going to be inconsistent, man, have some higher highs.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's a hard goaltender to watch sometimes. When he's on though, he's an absolute delight. So honestly, I think it was for the best. I think it was time for us to move on in terms of our goaltending.
Mm-hmm. And that you seem to do because you guys traded for Martin Jones. You got him from who was it? You guys got him from
Bruins.
The Bruins, right? Because the Kings traded him to the Bruins for Lucic, and then the Bruins immediately shipped, like a day or two later, shipped him to you guys.
Lucic on the Kings. Why? It's gonna suck. So
that was a good addition for the Kings, though.
It was. It's a good addition for them. Not a good addition for everyone else.
Bad news bears for everyone else.
Yeah. So I want to point out first and foremost that I am a wizard, and I totally predicted Martin Jones coming to the Sharks. And everyone was like, "Oh, Babs, Jones will never come to San Jose. LA won't trade him within the conference, let alone the division." And as totally correct as that was, I was still like hoping beyond hope. I was like, I want this to happen. It needs to happen. We need a young, good goaltender who will really like hold down the fort. And Jones is so fantastic, and he was never going to get the minutes he needed in LA. Like, let's be honest, never, because they have Jonathan Quick, and when you have Jonathan Quick, why would you not play Jonathan Quick? Like, so yeah. Jones needed to leave LA. I knew he was going to leave LA. I was just like, please, San Jose, please, San Jose, please, San Jose. And then it happened, and I was so pleased. So I think what they're going to do is I think it's going to be a lot like last season, where it's going to end up being like a 1A, 1B goalie situation where they're going to try and do both, but ultimately I think by the end of the season we'll see Jones as our steady starting goaltender. That's my prediction anyhow.
Yeah, you have a starting goaltending tandem now of a 25-year-old and a 28-year-old, so
yeah,
it probably will be a 1A, 1B situation looking at that.
Yeah, I'm just concerned based on how... I mean, I don't know how DeBoer's going to play it necessarily, because we do have a new coaching staff, so that may end up being different, but I do see them trying a 1A, 1B situation to begin with, but eventually settling on Jones by the end of the season.
All right, so we kind of talked about this a little bit when you went over your forward group, but you guys lost Captain Sniper John Scott, and you also lost Matt Irwin. Do these two losses hurt your team?
I cry myself to sleep every night over the loss of double secret alternate Captain Sniper John Scott. I don't know how the Sharks will ever recover.
Mhm.
Seriously though.
Looking at Matt Irwin, does he hurt your
Yeah.
team? Losing him.
Um, this is the thing, is that sometimes Matty Irwin is quite good, and
Mhm.
sometimes he's a ball of hot garbage.
Mhm.
So I don't know that it necessarily hurts the team to lose him.
Mhm.
It doesn't really help the team to lose him. It's not like dropping an anchor,
Mhm.
like we're not shedding dead weight, because he
Okay.
can pull his weight. So it doesn't really help the team, and it doesn't really hurt the team either.
Okay.
It was probably for the best, because I think he would be a better fit elsewhere,
Okay.
than the Sharks. But given how desperate for defense we are right now, I am a little bummed that we lost him. Just because he knows the team,
Mhm.
he knows the folks that he's working with, he knows the system that the Sharks have had. I mean, maybe it's better that you lose the people that know the system since we're coming in with a new coaching staff. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's a harder one to gauge, especially because Matt Irwin really like last season, the 13-14 season, I would have said like no Irwin, no. But this season I'm sort of like, well, he did well. I
Mhm.
mean, not great. He you know he did his job.
Yeah. Okay. But speaking of losing a defenseman, you guys gained a defenseman in the offseason. You guys signed Paul Martin
Yes,
as a defenseman.
yes,
His contract was a 4-year contract worth $4.85 million.
yeah.
What do you think of him?
I think that that's a fantastic contract. I think it's a
Mhm.
great addition to the Sharks. I'm really pleased. Um, I'm really pleased with the addition of Paul Martin. I think he's going to be a good fit for the team.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm super stoked about this. I'm really excited to see how our defensive pairs end up shaking out after camp. Just seeing how that's going to work out, because I'm not sure where they're going to place him. I'm hoping
Mhm.
that they play him with. I don't know. I'm not sure where I would place him for sure, but he's a good choice
Okay.
for the team in general. Having experienced but not too old defenseman,
Mhm.
um, who has a good contract, and seems like stylistically to be a good choice for the Sharks.
Okay. And the other player you signed is Joel Ward. What do you think about signing him?
Oh man, so Joel Ward is awesome, and I'm I'm really pleased because I have a soft spot in my heart. Soft spot. Wow, that was fun. A soft spot in my heart for the Capitals,
Okay.
because we're the Caps West and they're the
Mhm.
Sharks East in terms of uh,
Being
performance.
good but not making it.
Yes, exactly. Um, so that's it's really nice to have a player from an East team that I've long admired come over to the
Mhm.
Sharks. That being said, um, his numbers are good, but he's a little older.
Mhm.
Um, we don't really need older forwards.
Yeah.
Like, we're
You're
okay on that front.
Yeah,
Like,
it kind of looks like it.
yeah, we're
Thornton
we're
being 36, Marlowe
yeah,
being 35.
yeah. Like,
So,
we're good on that front. We really don't need a 34-year-old going to be 35 this year
mm,
right wing. Like, we just. But that being said, I am hopeful um, that he'll be a good fit with the Sharks. I just feel like we have this glut of forwards and glut of good forwards.
hmm
I'm just glad we didn't get another centerman, um,
yeah.
because God, we do not need more centermen with too many centers. So that is a positive. 7 of our forwards right now are natural centers.
I understand that feeling. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure it's
Toronto's in
about
that
the
boat
same
now
thing on my
lately too.
team.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad we didn't get a center, but Joel Ward, I'm not sure. We'll have to see how that pans out. I'm not as optimistic as I am with Paul Martin, though I love Joel Ward as a player, and I'm going to really enjoy watching him, I think.
Okay. And another thing that happened this offseason, you guys lost head coach Todd McClellan. Does this really hurt your team, and do you think it's a good move? And on the same front, talk about your new coach, Peter DeBoer, and him coming in, and your thoughts on him.
So I saw this headline on NHL.com, which read, McDavid McClellan lead Oilers big overhaul. And all I could think was, the sound of silence. Oh, darkness, my old friend. That's just very, very sad. I'm happy for Todd McClellan, though. I'm happy that he gets to go on to a team that's on the cusp of something really interesting, rather than struggling with the Sharks. Yeah, it's very much an Well, this is the thing. Okay, there is still the possibility that it's not going to be a great thing for the Oilers. But that being said, it's going to be really interesting, no matter how that ends
it's
out.
going to be interesting. That's definitely it.
Yeah.
For them.
But in terms of how this affects the Sharks, I felt like McClellan was really good for the Sharks. I felt like he was a very good fit. He was, like those really chill, like shepherding dogs that don't freak out too much, but they're really good at nipping at heels just right without being too loud.
Yeah.
He was like that, but for hockey. So he was not too over the top or overly angry, but he seemed to get the job done when it needed to happen. And losing him is going to be hard. He's been in San Jose for some really fantastic years. In terms of how I feel about DeBoer coming in, it could have been so much worse.
Yeah, it could have.
I had this horrible nightmare that we would get Tortorella, that we would get Torts, and it would be the worst thing. Because
Carlisle.
Oh God.
I think that was the biggest rumor for you guys. You were gonna get
Yeah,
Carlisle.
none of the toasters in San Jose would be safe. I'm in terms of who we could have gotten. DeBoer's probably the best choice other than Babcock, but I knew we weren't going to get Babcock. That just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And I knew better than to really hope for that. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic, which is actually 90% of what I can say about the Sharks this coming year.
Peter DeBoer, from what I've seen from him in New Jersey, I've watched him for a couple of years. What the system he had there was kind of boring, but that may have just been because of the personnel he had. He likes a defensive system, so I think that might help your defense there.
And this is true.
So the system might work. It might just be very boring to watch. So be ready for that. I know it was very boring to watch on the East Coast. Where we're used to very run and gun style compared to the defensive boringness that he had.
Yeah.
But looking at the last few questions we have here for the offseason, though, do you have any free agents you still want to sign or holes your team that you think still needs to fill?
Well, we don't have a ton of cap space left at this point. So I think that if we're going to make any moves, they're going to have to involve trades. Just to make the cap space happen. And looking at who's available, I don't know that there's anyone who would be a good fit in terms of what we need and the age of the player and the skill of the player available. The list is kind of picked over at this point for what we need.
Okay.
So it's I don't think there's any free agents left that I would sign if I were GM.
Okay. And do you think anything else will? Do you think your team will do anything else this offseason? Whether it be, fire Doug Wilson or anything else, or name a captain maybe.
So we will have a captain by the
Mhm.
start of the season. That's been promised to us.
Who do you think it will
Uh,
be?
the smart money is on Joe Pavelski.
Okay.
Um, my hopeful money is back on Joe Thornton. Because here's the thing: as long as Joe Thornton is in that locker room, he's the captain.
Yeah, he's
Like,
always the leadership crew is always a leadership crew, no matter if they
yeah,
have a letter on their jersey or not.
exactly. So Joe Thornton's going to be steering that ship,
Mhm.
um, regardless of who has the seat.
Mhm.
But Pavelski is realistically going to be the one with the letter on his sweater.
Okay.
Um, in terms of other things they might do this offseason, I I don't know, but I'm terrified. Like, I'm scared. I
Mhm.
have nothing left but fear and cautious, hopeful optimism.
Okay. So yeah, and that was this off season for the San Jose Sharks. Heading into the 2015-2016 season, what do you expect from it?
Um, my expectations for the season are nothing. Absolutely nothing. I refuse to have any real dreams going into this season. My
Mhm.
pie in the sky hope is that they don't completely break my heart, that they don't make me want to turn off games halfway through,
Mhm.
um, that I'll be able to, uh, watch and enjoy games. I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear, but there's blue angels flying overhead. Uh,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, sorry
Okay.
about that. So, yeah, my expectations are nothing.
Mhm.
Absolutely nothing.
All right. And do you think this will be the last season for Doug Wilson in the
God, I
organization?
hope so. Realistically, I think that as long as Doug Wilson continues to do what Hasso Plattner wants him to do, he'll
Mhm.
have a job.
Okay.
That he's not going to lose his job as long as he keeps doing what Hasso Plattner, who's the owner of the Sharks,
Okay.
wants him to do.
So you think he's just a mouthpiece for the owner?
Basically, they've got a really weird relationship. Plattner seems to not want to spend a dollar more than he has to. This
Mhm.
season seems to be a little bit of a change from that because last season we were a fair bit under cap.
Mhm.
And this season, he seems to have seen that last season that did not pay off so well. So this season he's going to do a little bit more. That they're also, raising ticket prices and basically pulling up money wherever they can.
Mhm.
So it's clearly a money ploy, but it's there are weird things afoot in San Jose.
Mhm. And what do you think it's your timetable for your team to get back to the playoffs? If you had to be hopeful.
So the only note I have for this is Kristen Bell laughing crying .gif, um, which is how I feel about our timetable. Okay, so on the one hand, this is the real thing about last season and why I graded so low
Mhm.
because the pieces were there.
Mhm.
They weren't put in the place that they need to be. Coaching didn't put them where they need to be, or the ownership made sure that they weren't where they needed to be. Whatever. But there were pieces there that could have made the Sharks contenders still.
Mhm.
There was still the possibility. So even going into the season, even knowing that we're much better off than we were last season, even seeing the really good off-season moves that we've made, I don't know that it's going to happen. I just don't know it's going to happen. So I I do not dare to hope.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you don't want to give your timetable to be an actual cup contender inside the playoffs?
What are cups? I don't know what that is.
All right. So Blake, did you have any questions you wanted to ask Babs here?
I just wanted to say one thing, Babs. I think the perfect microcosm not only of the Sharks season, but the Blues season as well, was the first Sharks Blues game that was at the SAP Center at San Jose, if you remember. So the Sharks sharked when Steve Ott, muscled past the Sharks defense and scored breakaway goal
Yeah.
against Miami there, I believe. And the Blues bluesed because I think it was Brent Burns scored in overtime and the Sharks won.
Uh, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Like, that's, oh man. That's so Sharks and that's so Blues. Like, I, I Steve Ott of all people. But that is totally the Sharks right there. Like, you don't get sharkier than that. Oh, no, you do get sharkier than that because it was 3-0. Um, so yeah. Yeah, that basically sums it up.
It was so Blues because the rare, extraordinary thing occurred, which was a plus for us, and we didn't win the game still.
Yeah. Ah, so it goes.
Right, so I think that was it for our Sharks interview. So thanks to you for joining us, Babs.
Thank you.
Uh, Blake, I guess get started here with Alex on the Avalanche interview.
I'm not as funny as Babs is. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm wondering how you're going to perhaps try to find a way to follow up that lively interview there.
Terribly.
Well, and
Oh, I can do
ladies and
my
gentlemen, I
best.
think it's important for this overview to rewind back to the lockout shortened season because
Oh,
ever since then the Colorado Avalanche has had uh, a roller coaster of a time. It was
yeah.
the last season under whoever was the previous head coach, and it was dismal to say the least, perhaps. A dismal season there, but then in comes Patrick Waugh in the next season. In comes a young, talented defense. Nathan MacKinnon was drafted in that off season,
Praise be to
and
McKinnon.
yes, and they make the playoffs there. Unfortunately, at a 7-game loss to the Minnesota Wild there, but the hope and the hype, it has reached Denver now, and the previous season brings all the hope and the hype, of course, fell flat,
Yeah.
and that's where we are now. Talk about that past season.
First off, I just want to say that if I would rather not make the playoffs again than make it and lose to Minnesota again. I'd just rather skip it. I'd not deal with that heartbreak. This season was it was interesting, and it was a slow start, and that was the problem. Is at the beginning of the season, it seems like they couldn't mesh. They really didn't know how to play together and work together, and especially uh, just it didn't seem to work. But by the time December rolled around, now if I'm remembering this right, if they had played from the same way that they played December through April, if they had played that way the entire season, they would have finished in playoff contention with 100 108 or 110 points or something like that. Um, so it was just a slow start, and they played fairly well towards the end of the season, but it just never really panned out, and they weren't able to scrape their way back up. And especially being in Central Division, not to use that as an excuse or anything, but it's a tough division to get to get into in the playoffs. Uh, yeah, and as far as like point production from the players go, I was actually very happy with the way that all turned out because our we had 6 players that had between 50 and 60 points, and go figure, our oldest guy on the team, or I think he's the oldest, maybe Stewart's older, but Iginla, 38 years old, put up 59 points. I mean, that shows right there that that's paying off. And then I mean McKinnon, we had injuries with McKinnon, we had injuries with Mitchell and Johnson. Uh, Arguably our best defenseman missed almost half the season with an injury. Like I'm just looking at the roster here and I'm seeing four players I think that played the full season, and most of them, most of the other ones were in the 50 to somewhere in 50 to 70 games. So we missed a lot of players.
And
So
oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, that was kind of towards the end of what I had to say about last season. There's not really much to talk about. We didn't make the playoffs, and as you said, the hype totally fell flat because I was thinking we were going to be contenders, and I think we could have been had we gotten the ball rolling properly at the start of the season.
And you mentioned the Central Division, a bit of a segue here into the forward group in the unit breakdown. You mentioned the Central Division, which in the previous offseason certainly got loaded. St. Louis, Chicago, Dallas, Nashville, even Colorado as well, all making huge splashes, getting free agents, some helpful trades coming their way. It was setting up for a very dynamic season in the Central Division,
Yeah,
and the Colorado Avalanche, especially, possessing a young yet potent, dynamic offense. Captain Gabriel Landeskog, Matt Duchene, Nathan MacKinnon, who was only a rookie the previous season, and the newest acquisition, Jerome Iginla, former Calgary captain, bounced around in the East, decided to come back west and join in on this massive Central Division arms race.
that was actually much thanks to Alex Tanguay, a former teammate in Calgary, and they played together for Team Canada. And it was actually a lot of that had to do with Alex Tanguay talking to Jerome Iginla, and the Avalanche's apparent promise and optimism towards the team and where it was going. And Alex Tanguay talking to him, he kind of decided, yeah, Colorado would be a good place to go. And I'm starting to feel bad for Iginla. This guy, we got 2 years, and at this point, it's like I don't know if we're going to be in playoff contention within 2 years in this division because it's stiff competition. Um, Especially after losing O'Reilly this year, Stastny last year, I feel like we should be using Iginla to try and get something in return because I don't think he's going to win a cup with us. So, because unless he's going to pull a Yager and play until he's 48, yeah, I just don't know. I feel like we should be trying to do something with him, maybe. But on the other hand, then you've got the veteran experience that he brings and the ability that he has to teach the younger guys and kind of show them around. So it's hard to know what to do with a guy who's close to retirement.
And now the rest of the offensive unit again, young yet potent. Landeskog, Duchene, MacKinnon, entering his second season in this previous season.
Yeah, and MacKinnon, he put up decent numbers for the games that he played. It wasn't as stellar as his first year, but I think that had to do with the slow start of the team, and then he was also injured. He missed 18 games, I think it was, and he still had 30 something points. What was that? 38 points in 64 games. So it's not stellar. It's not what we were hoping from him, but maybe a little bit of sophomore slump there because I think he had 60 in his first season. I was hoping he was going to be closer to 70 maybe, but that might have been a little too optimistic. And then Landeskog, he was actually tied with Iginla for top of our team in points. He's a solid player. He's got that grit, but he needs to kind of work on his discipline because I noticed him taking, especially towards the end of last season, he was taking a lot of dumb penalties, and that was really starting to bother me. Is we've got our captain, tied for leading our points, but he's also right up there, almost leading penalty minutes. I think only McLeod, probably McLeod, maybe. I think he was the only one that had more penalty minutes than Landeskog. And that's an issue is when your best player or one of your best players is sitting in the penalty box for a couple minutes a game, it's not good. Of course, we had O'Reilly, and that didn't pan out, but he did pretty well last year. And Duchesne he's Duchesne. He's fast, he's talented, and he's part of that main core that I'm hoping we're going to keep around. If we lose another big name center like that, that's not going to go well.
And you mentioned Landeskog actually being tied with Iginla for tops on the team in points, and especially with Iginla, to word it differently, Iginla being tied with Landeskog, top of the team in points. Did it become more clear? Did it become more evident as the season went on that Iginla's role on the team was to be more of the point man, the setup man?
Absolutely, yeah. It was especially towards about 2/3 of the way through the season when he was getting up to the 20-goal mark, and we were thinking, well, is he going to go for another 30-goal season? And he didn't quite make it, but it was. I think when he was brought on, it was initially not so much to be the one doing the heavy lifting; it was to be kind of that leader, that mentor for the younger guys. And it just turned out that he's still putting up good numbers. He's still playing fantastically. He's still top of the team in points. So to see that from him, and it is apparent that we still need him for that. And same thing with Tanguay. Alex Tanguay is I think 35, and he was third in the league, or third in the team in points right after Landeskog. So again, another guy who's supposed to be a leader and a mentor who's stepping up and putting up these great numbers.
So you'd say the offensive unit, the forward unit especially, has that good mix of the young, talented forwards, but still young, and also the older players, kind of helping them out and teaching them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good blend of that, and it's going to be tough, I think, to fill the shoes of these guys as they get older and as they get close to retirement, maybe start slowing down. I've noticed Iginla, we made a big shift from the 2013-14 season. We were all about speed and just flying up the ice and doing what we could in that regard. And then this past year, it seemed to really slow down, and we only had, the one unit that was really fast, and every other one seemed to kind of focus on the shots and the setup, and it wasn't just about breakneck speed like it used to be. And a lot of that came from two of our best players being older. You can't expect Iginla and Tanguay to be able to match pace with McKinnon, who's one of the faster skaters in the league, right?
Alrighty, and how would you grade the forward unit's performance in the previous season?
Um, I'd say they actually did fairly well. They weren't putting up this, the point production that we would have liked to see. I think Colorado finished about somewhere around 20th as far as goals for goes. So on alone, it's hard to give them a great grade, but I'd say they were a B. They played really well. They didn't always have the consistency, but I think, well, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about shot totals, because they were doing pretty poor for that, maybe a B minus, because it seemed like it was the MO of the Avalanche was go out, get outshot, find for Lomov to make the saves. Although I would fault the defense for that rather than the offense, but the offense just never seemed to get the right kind of shots either, and so we did spend a lot of time in our own zone. So it's hard where exactly the cause of all that came from, but I'd say a B minus is pretty reflective of how they played.
Watching the Blues and the Avalanche games when they were on the NBC Sports Network, I certainly noticed a bit of that as well, sort of evident to New Jersey or Montreal doing that sort of deal. The team essentially relying on their goaltender to get them the win, to will them to the win. But we'll definitely get to more on Varlamov and goaltending in a bit. But we move down the line to the blue line and the Avalanche defensive unit. You mentioned Eric Johnson earlier. Uh, First overall pick. Oh, um, you mentioned perhaps the top player on your defensive unit, but it appears to me the issue with the Avalanche defense, especially, was injuries to the biggest players on that unit.
Yes, Eric Johnson missed, like I said, almost half the season, and I'd say for last season, there's no way you could say he wasn't our best defenseman. And even going forward, I would say he's still going to be our best defenseman. We're bringing in Francois Beauchemin, who might. I don't want to pit them against each other. I don't want to say one's going to be better than the other. I think they're going to work well together. But I still think Johnson is our go-to guy for defense. But yeah, again, he missed half the season, and so, but he still put up 23 points, and that was 12 of those were goals. You know, when you have a defenseman who's putting up 12 goals in half a season, it's good. It's good to see them getting in on the action. And sorry. Then we also had was it Zach Redmond? He played well too. Had 59 games and 20 points, and he seemed to fit fine in with the team. But the problem is we only really had maybe 3 or 4 defensemen that I thought were really NHL ready. When I look at Nate Gennon and Nick Holden, not really sure whether they're. I mean, obviously they're not our top line of defense, but I think they even weren't where they needed to be. And Jan Heda, who I used to think was pretty solid, I don't know if it was just a bad year or if he's just starting to go downhill, but he didn't have a very good year either. The defense was pretty rough, and that was evident in the amount that we relied on our goalies, and in the fact that it was always coming down to Varlamov to carry the team because the defense couldn't get the puck out of the zone, and they weren't blocking shots like they should have been, and so 40 shots against was the norm. 40, 45, there was a couple 50s. Like, how could you expect to win when your defense can't get the puck under control? They can't get it out of the zone. They can't block shots. They can't give the goalie the support they need. So overall I was pretty disappointed with the defense this year, but I'm looking forward to seeing how things work next year in our zone.
Now, the way the Blues defense was last season, especially, it appeared that the whole thing just became a hot, steaming pile of garbage, to use one of Bab's terms, when Shattenkirk went down. Quarterback of the power play, top defenseman by far that season. Was that sort of the same feeling in Colorado? Did the defense just go in shambles when Johnson went down? Is the Avalanche defense capable of performing admirably without Eric Johnson?
I don't know if they're performing admirably with him, but I can tell you this: it didn't seem like it was a huge difference maker. But then as time went on, we went, all right, can't wait to see Johnson back. Waiting for Johnson. Because it was definitely felt by the team to not have him there. So yeah, I'd say without him, it was definitely a downturn in the quality of defense, just because he wasn't there, to help with the point production and to give them the support they needed. I think, I'm hoping, obviously, that he's going to be healthy all next season, because we're definitely going to need him again.
And how would you grade the defensive performance from last season?
Maybe a C- to probably C-. I can't I can't, in all good conscience, give them any more than that when they were facing so many shots. Well, allowing so many shots, I suppose.
Alrighty, and now moving further behind to the in between the pipes, the Avalanche goaltending. Now, interestingly enough, the Avalanche did make some moves, make some player personnel changes in the backup spot. However, Semyon Varlamov still carried the bulk of the workload for the goaltending unit.
Yeah, that's Varlamov for you. He's kind of been our guy that's just carrying the team, and unfortunately, it was like that a lot in 2013, 2014, even in the playoffs against Minnesota, where we're facing 40 plus shots a night, and he can only do it for so long. He's in fantastic shape, sure, he's fantastically talented, but he's still human, and for him to be worked to the bone night after night. If I remember right, he was injured for a while last year too, um, and missed a handful of games. But we also had Calvin Pickard step up, and we had Calvin Pickard and we had Rito Berra. I'm kind of on the fence about Berra. I've had absolutely no confidence in him until this year, and then seeing Calvin Pickard play, I have absolutely no complaints about Pickard, and he played absolutely fantastic. He actually had the best save percentage out of all of our goalies. um, Going on, I think we're still going to see a lot of that reliance on Varlamov, but at least this year, I believe we're going to be able to play two. Well, our defense going forward is going to be Boschman, Johnson, Zadorov, Barry, Stewart, and Gannon. And I think Gannon is going to be the weak link there, and Brad Stewart is Brad Stewart. We know he's not going to be stellar. So I think we're going to see, as is the usual, I suppose, focus a lot on the top two defensive lines, and it's going to come down to whether that third line is going to be dropping the ball or not. But I've got confidence in Boschman and Johnson to keep the heat off the goalies a little better than last year, but I still think we're going to see a lot of reliance on them.
Now, I found it interesting that the Avalanche would make some moves, make some player moves for the backup role, despite the team's heavy reliance on Varlamov. Kind of go over the thought process on that as an insider there, as our insider.
Sorry, as to which? As to the
as to making moves, player moves in the backup spot, despite still relying heavily on Varlamov.
Is it still Pickard and Barra though, right? Unless there was something that I missed.
Oh, I suppose it could be.
And I might have missed something. I've been busy as hell the last couple of weeks, but if it is still Pickard and Barra, which I know Pickard, as far as the last that I heard, his contract was coming up at the end of this year, but I don't know if that was ever worked out or not.
Berra is still your backup goaltender.
Okay, good, because he's got a good future, and holy shit, watching that guy play, it was like, honestly, that's when I totally jumped off the whole Rito Berra train, and I was like, at this point, is it even worth continuing with Berra when we've got Pickard, who is going to be stellar? Seeing him step up while Varlamov was out, and he had one, I think it was the first game that he played, or one of the first ones he played, he put up like 40 something saves and was just standing on his head the whole game long. So I think that should honestly be where our focus is. But on the other hand, we have Rito Berra, who's sitting at right around 28. So you're kind of at that sweet spot where goalies usually start hitting their prime. So he had a 9, what was it, a 912, sorry, 918 save percentage last year. So it's, it's not great, but it's still pretty good. In the 12 games started, 19 games he played in. So I feel like we should probably give him another year or two, see where he's at, and if he's not playing the way that he should be, like for now, leave Pickard developing in the minors for another year or two while we toy with Berra, and then just if Berra's not stepping up, then just kick him to the curb, honestly.
Now, I want to change topics here for a bit because you mentioned Calvin Pickard and speak so highly of him. He was called up from Lake Erie at a time when Varlamov was injured, but Varlamov wasn't the only injury at that time, and Pickard wasn't the only call up from Lake Erie at that time.
Right, because Berra was out as well, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There were, I guess, a handful of players from Lake Erie that were called up, a couple of them being a couple forwards, if I remember, and they still willed the team to the win. So, is there some good depth starting to build in Colorado?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not too familiar with the players that came up from the minors for that. So can't help you a whole lot with that, but yeah, that's kind of it for me. I don't really can't help you much with the minor leagues.
Okay, alrighty. And now back on track. How would you grade the goaltending unit from the last season?
A minus, just because I still don't think we have what we need from Berra. And granted, he is a backup and not a starter, but Varlamov did great. He played injured for a while. He didn't really heal up 100%, and he was kind of getting. He didn't have his spectacular year like he did the year before, but he still did well, and we still were able to count on him when we needed to. And having Pickard there as our backup was actually better than our backup, and I'd say A minus because there's just so much skill there, and we can rely on them.
And lastly, for the unit breakdown and for the previous season in review, Patrick Waugh entering his second year with his coaching staff. How did season 2 go for the Avalanche coaching staff?
Well, he didn't get into any fights this year, so I'm kind of disappointed in that. I was kind of hoping for that, but no luck. As far as everything else goes, I mean, he's still something that I've found interesting is that he doesn't touch the goalie staff. He absolutely lets the goalie coach work with them, and he doesn't interfere at all, which is good, I suppose. But everything that he's doing right now seems to be, I guess it's not working as well as it could be, but it's also, he's doing what he can with what he's got. And I think he brings that passion that is absolutely needed. And I think he's still what we need in a coach. And so I'm happy with the way that he's, with what he's doing with the team. And he also has a close relationship with Sakic, from what I've heard. They kind of, they talk back and forth and have things, which of course you need in that relationship. You need constant communication between the coach, and I think both of them together make a good management team.
I believe the two of them weren't they teammates for at least one or both of Colorado's Stanley Cup wins?
Both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were together for a long time.
Oh yeah. So the relationship certainly didn't start with the hiring of Waugh. It had been a thing for a while now.
Yeah. Well, they Patrick Waugh went to the. I think he went to the North. Oh, geez, this is back before my time. I was born in '94, so I'm thinking back here, and I believe he went to the Nordiques before they moved to Colorado. And then they did move to Colorado in '96, won the Cup then with Sakic and Waugh on the team, won again in 2001. And then I believe Waugh retired, I want to say the year before the lockout. So they played together for all that time. Interestingly enough, they also played with Tanguay, who's still on the team. They played with Hayduk, who just retired last year, I believe, or before last season. They have Adam Foote as one of the defensive coaches, who was also on the team for one of the Cups. So it's kind of like an old boys club there, except it seems to be working a lot better than it does here in Edmonton.
I I I just find that interesting how two of the biggest stars, perhaps, on those cup-winning teams, they in later years they end up being the two biggest management stars for the team. It seems.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a great job so far. I like. I was kind of um, hesitant at the beginning of the last off season, and then once they signed Iginla, I was like, all right, well, they've got a plan. They know what they're doing here, and that kind of restored my faith in them. And throughout the year, it's been pretty steady. I still think they've got a good idea of what they want to do, and I think they're facing some challenges, and they faced challenges last year with the loss of Stastny because I mean, that was him. You know, he wanted to stay with the team for the playoff run, and then as soon as the playoff run was over, he was gone. And then this year with O'Reilly, it's tough when you're trying to deal with someone who is looking at you through some dollar signs. And so they've been facing challenges with their player management, but I think they've done what they can uh, and gotten in return what they could when things were ready to leave.
All right. And lastly, how'd you grade the Avalanche coaching staff, their performance this past season?
Um, I'd say probably maybe a B because I still think they need to work on the power play a lot. And again, it's hard to tell whether the blame lies with coaches or players for shortcomings, and I think it's got to be shared between both. I feel like the coaches need to work with the defense, knowing that maybe they aren't where they need to be, and just trying to get them with some strategies and get things to really mesh there because it just doesn't seem to work out.
Alrighty, and now we move into the off season, and we begin first with player acquisitions, player movement from the free agency period. Um, well, Don Sweeney, the Bruins' already perhaps infamous general manager, he reaches out to Colorado, and the Avalanche now have officially the rights to Carl Soderberg, who brought plenty of hype over there to Boston. What do you expect of Soderberg in Colorado?
I think he's going to be. Um, he's not going to fill O'Reilly's skates. We're not going to, make up for the loss of O'Reilly with just one player. But that's kind of the role that he's taking on. Is I know that in the training camp he started off centering McKinnon and Landeskog, which I'm kind of iffy on that. I don't know whether that's still the plan or not. I think that Duchesne might work better on that line. But I suppose the thing with Soderberg is he's a fairly big guy. He's like 6'3", 215 pounds. But he's excuse me. I think that he'd be a good. I think he'd be a good second line center. I don't think he should be on our top line. And that being said, I don't even know that McKinnon and Landeskog are going to be our top line. It might be Iginla and Tanguay and someone else. But I feel like Soderberg would fit well with Iginla and Tanguay rather than McKinnon and Landeskog. But he's got 94 points in 161 games, so he's kind of fitting right into. I think that those numbers might go up here with if he is with McKinnon and Landeskog, though.
And of course, the other trades, since the big name has been mentioned a couple times at least, might as well jump into that one. A draft day trade, the Buffalo Sabres acquired both forwards Ryan O'Reilly and Jamie McGinn from Colorado, and the Avalanche in return get defenseman Nikita Zadorov, forwards Mikhail Grigorenko and JT Compher, and the 31st overall pick in that draft. Um, of course, not only Ryan O'Reilly, who I guess you could say was supposed to be the heir apparent to be the next big thing in Colorado, is what I thought of him. But Jamie McGinn as well, another young player with potential there. But you do get two of Buffalo's biggest prospects, perhaps. Talk about that trade in full.
Well, the loss of Jamie McGinn, uh, it's not as significant as I think it could have been. Although I guess I mean, obviously it's a loss when you lose a young guy like that. But the big impact was losing Ryan O'Reilly. And I mean, from Buffalo's standpoint, what they did with his contract was brilliant. They front loaded the shit out of his contract. Um, he's getting $1 million a year, and everything else is signing bonuses for 7 years, I believe it was. And they gave him a $10 million signing bonus for next year, or I guess this upcoming year, and then I believe 8 for the one after, and then 7.5, and then 5, 5, 5, 5. So they can afford to give him those huge numbers for the next couple seasons while while they've got millions of dollars of cap space. We couldn't afford to do that. Um, and it wasn't going to work out in the long run. He wanted too much money for what the team felt like he was worth. So I guess while we are taking a downgrade in the players that we're getting back, we're still allowing ourselves room with the cap and doing what we can to stay out of cap hell. And then we also got in return, we got Zadorov, who is 6'5", 220 pounds. It's what we kind of need in a defenseman, because our defensemen aren't all that big. I mean, our big guys are Cody McLeod, who's he's a scrapper. He's our tough guy. And we had Patrick Bortolo, who's a forward, but I don't think he even really played last season. He might have played 1 or 2 games, but I believe he was out. Yeah, he played 1 game. So obviously we're not counting on him. So we need someone with some size, and especially having that long reach in the defensive zone is going to be helpful. And then our acquisition of Grigorenko, however you pronounce that name, he actually was coached by Waugh when he played in the Quebec League. So he's only signed to a 1-year contract. So we're going to give him a year to see exactly what he's worth, and then it'll be, let him prove himself. And I think depending on how well he plays, like I really don't know what to expect from him. But if he plays well enough, we could also look at bumping him up to maybe the second line, and maybe having someone like Tanguay go down to the third, just to bring some of that, that great skill. Though, no, I don't think Tanguay would be good on the third, because he puts up too many points to not play that many minutes. So, but it'll still allow for more flexibility of the lines rather than having them, with our kind of definite top 6.
And now back to the free agency portion of player acquisitions. We talked about Carl Soderberg, but 2 other names the Avalanche picked up, signing forward Blake Como and defenseman Francois Beauchemin from the Anaheim Ducks. Talk about those 2 there and your thoughts on them.
I'm very excited actually to see Francois Beauchemin come to the team, because Nate Gennon, I suppose, is is kind of an older guy. Well, and we had Brad Stewart as well, but Stewart just doesn't really seem to contribute a whole lot. Um, but Francois Beauchemin, he was kind of Anaheim's. I don't know if he was their top two guy. Last year he was putting up some good minutes there. I believe he was top for Anaheim in minutes played for their defense, and 23 points in 64 games. So again, he's putting up point production. He's 35. He's bringing in some experience, some cups. He's getting. It was a 3-year, $4.5 million contract. Sorry, $4.5 million annual contract. So he's not damaging us for cap space. That's a totally reasonable contract for this guy, I think. And I don't know if he's going to have the speed to keep up, and also at 35, whether he's going to start going downhill, when he's going to do that. But I think a 3-year contract for him is the perfect amount of length, and I think that he's going to be a very, very good attribute to the defensive line. And I'm predicting he's going to be playing with Johnson on the top line, because we need someone that we can trust to put up all those minutes. As far as Blake Como, he played. He's kind of been bounced around a little bit here. He's got Islanders, Flames, Blue Jackets, Penguins in the last 4 years. His numbers are all right. He's definitely not going to be one of our top 2 lines, but I'd say he's going to be a good 3rd or 4th line. I mean, it is what it is. It's another addition that's going to help, but we're not going to be relying on him for winning games for us. At least not that I can tell.
All right. And now the other big moment in the off-season, the NHL draft took place in Florida. Colorado had the 10th overall pick, and with it they chose a right wing, Mikko Rantanen. And they, of course, had the 31st overall pick, from the O'Reilly trade. And a lot of the drafting started to occur, of course, in the second round. 2 picks there. Talk about the addition of Rantanen and how the Avalanche did with the rest of the draft.
I look forward to seeing Rantanen play here. He played in the Finnish, I think it was the Finnish Elite League, and he was doing pretty well over there. I didn't look him up too in depth, but I did look at some of his highlights on from what I could find online. And I mean, he's obviously got talent, and he's putting up decent points from what I'm aware of. And from what I saw, he's I believe he was the top international player that was available in the draft. So I think they did a good job with grabbing him, and he's also pretty big. He's 6'4" and 210 pounds. So again, it's good to have a little more size up front. And I don't think he'll be starting right off in the NHL, but I can see him getting there, within a couple of years. Maybe, yeah, I'd say within probably 2 years or so, he'll be NHL ready, hopefully. The other drafts, I honestly couldn't even. I didn't get a chance to watch the draft, so I'm not familiar with who they picked.
Now, heading into the draft, what were you getting as the feeling? What was the one position, the one main position that everyone would have desired to see be picked up in the draft?
It would have been nice to pick up some young defense, and we did pick up some defense through the draft. So that was kind of, I think, what the focus should have been. But ultimately, when you end up with a choice, and if Rantanen, excuse me, if he was still available, I'm glad that they did grab him. But it wasn't until the second round that we ended up picking up some defense, and then again in the fifth and sixth rounds. And I feel like we could have picked up someone maybe a little earlier in the draft, but in today's league where everyone wants defensemen, of course, and there aren't quite enough of them to go around, I can see why maybe they wouldn't have focused on that right off the get-go.
And how would you grade the Avalanche in the draft?
Again, I think I was a little too ignorant of the draft to be able to give them a grade, but I'd give them, with what they had, I'd give them an A for picking up Rantanen.
Alrighty. Alright, and now as we move on through the rest of the off-season, we are now entering the month of August. Preseason, I believe, starting next month. So clock is ticking down to make some moves in this off-season period. Do you expect to see any more player moves?
I'm not sure if I expect any more. I think that where we're at right now is good enough. And I was looking at the cap space and contracts and all that, and from what I can tell, it looks like we've got millions. We've got plenty of room this season, but we've got a whole lot of UFAs coming up, and RFAs too next year in Tanguay, Bordelot, McKinnon, Cleach. Then we're going to have Everberg, Johnson, Barry. Like, we need to, as good as it'd be to go out and grab someone of a good caliber player, rather. It'd be good to go out and grab someone, but on the other hand, we don't have really the ability to offer more than a 1-year contract, and who wants that but someone who is thinking of retiring? So unless we were to go out and just pick up someone who was on the cusp of retirement for 1 year for a couple $1 million, there's really not a lot of big signings that we could make. So I don't expect to see much, but yeah.
Alrighty, and then the final section of this interview, the look ahead, the outlook into the next season. And we begin with the Central Division and the Avalanche in the Central Division. Colorado finished with a 39, 31, and 12 overall record last season. Last place in the Central Division, only 2 points, however, behind Dallas in that finishing. Now, as we look ahead, as we look at what the Central teams have done this year and how that could relate into the next season, it appears so far that perhaps Nashville, Dallas, Winnipeg making some big moves in the offseason and in the trade deadline. St. Louis, Chicago, Minnesota not doing a whole lot, though in the past season, most of these teams made gains. With that in mind, and with the possibility that all of that could continue, where do you see Colorado finishing in this Central Division?
I'd like to be optimistic and say, we'll be top, but we won't be. I'd say we're probably going to move up a little bit. It's going to be tough to fill the offensive gap, and not just offensive gap that's left by O'Reilly, because he was a fantastic two-way forward. So we're going to need guys to step up defensively and really focus on tightening that up. I could see us moving ahead maybe 2 spots, and I could see us being in wild card contention next year, but I couldn't see us moving up so far in this division that we're guaranteed a playoff spot or anything. I think it's going to be, if we get into the playoffs, it's going to be pretty down to the wire. It's going to be a tough battle to make it in. I think we'll probably finish maybe 5th in the division.
All right. And a further look ahead, more player acquisitions into the next trade deadline? Do you see Colorado being buyers or sellers during that time?
Sorry, into the trade deadline you said?
Yes.
Um, I don't really know if we have a whole lot to sell as of right now. Uh, I could see us trying to offload one of our goalie prospects. That's about it. But I know Patrick Waugh has a lot of faith in Rito Berra, and so he's going to keep trying to play him until he finally gives up. Um, but I also can't see us getting rid of Pickard. So I would say it'd be good to see us get rid of Berra. I'd like to see him because I think he does have. He's at that point where he might turn into a fantastic goalie for all we know. But we've already got one of those guaranteed in Varlamov, and a good chance at one of those in Pickard because Pickard's only 23 and he's playing like he's a 30-year-old veteran goalie. So I think we'll probably be. I think it'll be a bit of both. We're not going to necessarily be looking to sell or to buy, because I don't think we have the cap space going towards next year to be buying, and I don't think we have the people available to be selling.
All right. And lastly, what would you see as the current playoff window for the Avalanche? When you could see them getting back into the playoffs?
I could see them squeaking next year. I'll remain optimistic, but with my reservations. And it'd be nice to see them back in there. 'Cause, I mean, we saw what they could do, not this past year, but the year before. We saw what they could do after losing Stastny, and it was enough that we were still able to get by. And I don't know. I'm curious to see how it pans out, but I think it's going to be, if not next year, then it'll. If not next year, I could see them trying to get in and making a run for it within 2 years tops.
Now, has that outlook changed since the end of last season, since getting rid of O'Reilly and, well, mainly O'Reilly?
Yeah, actually, I thought had we kept O'Reilly, had we managed to do that for a reasonable price, I think that we'd be looking at another. Like, had we just kept the same core of the team and gone into this upcoming year, I think we would have been able to make another run into the playoffs again. I think that if we had kept O'Reilly, if we had kept the team the same as it was towards the end of this last season, I think we absolutely could have done it because, as we saw, it was that slow start that killed us, and they were playing very well towards the end of the season. Actually, even from about the halfway point forward, they were playing very well. And so I think had we not lost O'Reilly, I would have been a lot more confident that they were going to make it in. As I said, that's a big loss, and it's one that's going to be tough to recover from. So I don't know if I'm as confident as I would have been. I think it's going to be tough, but I think that it's possible for us to do it next year. As far as the Cup goes, that's not happening for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was talking earlier about Iginla and what we need to do with him. We maybe try and get him somewhere else or get something in return for him before he retires, because or until his contract expires and he decides he's going to go somewhere else. Because I don't think he's going to re-sign with us unless we really start picking things up again.
Alrighty. And that should complete the Avalanche overview. It's turned 3:45 p.m. Central Time, so we've been at it for about an hour and a half or so. An average amount of time for this show. Dave, Babs, any additional Avalanche comments, questions?
I think you covered everything for me.
Yeah, same here. Though when you brought up Brad Stewart, I felt a little bad, but not bad enough. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh no, he's great. I love him. Yeah.
No, he's sweet. He's just not, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to see that Stastny isn't quite putting up the same numbers as he used to be, though. Now that he's in St. Louis, I'm really happy
It's
that.
because he's playing with Patrick Berglund.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm just happy with that, but I'm still bitter about that he kind of
And
abandoned
Small
us.
victories, small
and
victories.
and
Yeah.
also playing on the third line. Biggest forward
Yeah.
playing on the third line. Woo!
Yeah. That's what really thrilled me most about that. Um, I find that kind of comical because he was, I think, for a while he was our top line center. I mean, it was usually between him and
Mm.
Duchesne, and
Experienced blues hockey. Yes.
yeah.
You'll cover all that during your interview, Blake. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually, it was going to get out of him. Alrighty.
Then
All right.
also as an Edmontonian, I would also like to say to Babs, thank you for the coach. I'm sure it's going to pan out well here.
Oh God, I want him to be happy. I really want Todd McClellan to be happy in Edmonton,
Yeah.
and I hope that Edmonton does amazing things. I know better than to be like they're gonna be awesome, because of course the second you say
Every,
something like that.
yeah, everyone said that for the last several years after we got first round draft pick after first round draft pick, and
Yeah,
so hopefully this first round draft pick. I mean, they're saying he's the best since Crosby's been in there, so
yeah,
I'm hoping he is going to be, that generational talent that we need.
yeah.
Um,
He looks pretty astounding, and McClellan is a fantastically talented coach. So I really hope it'll go well. Plus, you have Drew Remenda, who I love and miss every day.
yeah, that'll be an interesting season too. So
Yeah.
And one final thing, I'm a big fan of the wolf painting behind you there.
Oh yeah,
oh
very slick.
It's
oh
very
yeah, thank you.
nice.
Yeah, I got that. I've had that for a few years now. It's kind of my favorite thing in the house, I think.
Alrighty. Before we do the closing segment, Dave, a teaser ahead to next week's overviews.
It will be the Florida Panthers and the Dallas Stars.
Ooh, I know Babs has a soft spot for the Florida Panthers as well, so that
I
would
do.
intrigue
Wait, wait,
me
wait, wait.
again.
Wait, Florida has a hockey team?
Oh,
Oh.
shut it. Ah.
I'm a mean person.
Oh my. Okay. Now we enter the closing segment here. Once again, we'd like to thank Babs for joining us for the second year in a row to discuss the San Jose Sharks. Always great to have Babs around. And
Thank you. Always good to be here.
You can find her on Twitter. Her handle there is @HockeyBattler, and you can find her on Reddit at Sad Eye Sadie.
Sidaye.
Sadai. Yeah.
It's okay. Nobody can ever pronounce it.
Yeah. And thanks to Alex Edmonds for joining us this afternoon to discuss the Colorado Avalanche. You can find him on Reddit and Twitter at the Mr. Flux.
My pleasure.
And for Dave, you can find him on Twitter. His handle there is at Blinson1. And you can find him on Reddit. His handle there is Blinson. And for myself, you can find me on Twitter at ShetMyKirk, and also known as B-Town Bomb on Reddit. For Our HockeyCast, you can follow us on Twitter. Our handle there is at Our HockeyCast. You can subscribe to our Reddit page. Our address there is Our HockeyCast. You can go to ourhockeycast.com to browse archives of previous shows and episodes, and you can do that same thing on our YouTube channel. Our name there is Our HockeyCast. For Dave Ball, I am Blake Wood. This has been the Wooden Ball Show, and we are signing off.
Have a good night, everybody.